Okay, guys, this is really crazy. It just doesn't make any sense. I want you to go in the comment section and just say if I'm crazy or not. I'm just gonna say that straight up. It's not normal to have a bunch of tents and homeless people in like the downtown streets. Like, am I crazy? Like, is that like a really crazy thing to ask for, just to not have tents and homeless encampments everywhere in downtown? Because honestly, San Francisco to just do what San Diego did. I'm not even a big fan of San Diego, but I gotta admit, San Diego is doing a fine job in the whole entire homeless situation. So if you go to San Diego right now, it's probably the only California city I'll actually move to if I have to go to California. Like, this is the last holdout in California where the governors and people are actually somewhat sane. San Diego is experiencing record amounts of vacations, tourism, and businesses are actually opening up. The amount of businesses outflowing from San Diego is at an all-time low. It's super low, and nobody's leaving. And why is that? It's because they passed a bill or law, and that prevents homeless encampments in many areas of San Diego and only allows homeless encampments in certain areas of the city where it's enclosed, where facilities are building more homeless shelters. And guess what? San Diego is actually making a lot of money from real estate transactions, sales, and businesses because there's no tents on the streets, right? You're not going to attract tourism or businesses if there's tents on the streets. San Diego just helped out their businesses and landlords, and now they're receiving a crap load of tax money, and they're using that tax money to help out the homeless individuals. And massive win for San Diego. It's a win-win for everyone. But I don't know why, if you go to San Francisco, they just are cool with a bunch of homeless tents everywhere. It just doesn't make sense to me. And right now, if you look at this, ruling denies San Francisco's request to ease encampment removal ban. So what's going on is, in the past few months, they made this law where it's actually illegal to clean up massive homeless encampments, right? And the argument is like, if you clean it up, there's not enough shelters and you can't actually help the homeless people there, and they just don't have anywhere to sleep. I get it, right? San Francisco has a massive housing problem, but at this point, you might as well just get like the Westfield Mall and turn it into like a homeless shelter at this point, because you can't just have a bunch of homeless camp encampments everywhere. Because San Francisco just pretty much looks like this, right? If you go to the federal building, they literally have to set up fences. Okay, this is as dystopian as it gets. They have to set up fences to prevent homeless encampments and people doing fentanyl in this area. It's lawlessness, right? I'm sure the cops want to do stuff, but they can't do anything because the laws are absolutely crazy in San Francisco. Not to mention, everything is so lenient in San Francisco. Look at this. They got to put up barriers for the federal building. This is one of the craziest things I've ever seen in San Francisco. I mean, check this out. There's a lot of parts of the city where you don't want to be. It looks like this. Okay, these properties that you see are worthless. Cars don't want to park here. Retail space on the first floor is completely empty. Nobody wants to be here, right? There's just homeless tents everywhere. There's drug use everywhere. And there's even jokes about how you're definitely going to step on human feces or at least a needle. And this is what it looks like. And this is not like some far out place. This is like very close to the downtown areas of San Francisco and also the rest of the Bay Area. Like, every few streets in San Francisco, you always see a few tents, and they're super clustered in places like, for example, the Tenderloin. Now they're spreading out to the Mission. They're spreading out to the Civic Center. They're going to Nob Hill. And here's the thing. Everyone deserves a home, right? Now, obviously, these guys know that there's not enough shelters, and some people, homeless people, don't want to go to shelters because shelters are pretty freaky, in my opinion. Because if they're not done right, it's also a pretty dangerous environment. So San Francisco, screw it, let's just let people sleep on the streets. And the consequences of that is you do have fewer real estate transaction sales because property prices have dropped so much. Wells Fargo bought a building back in 2005. That's almost 2 decades ago for $108 million. And they recently sold it for $40 million. Imagine holding on to a property of almost 2 decades of accumulation in price. You could have picked this building anywhere, like New York City, Miami, Hong Kong, Singapore, Shanghai. You would have made like 3, 4, 5, even 7x on some of these condos and buildings. But only San Francisco, where prices actually dropped like 60% since you bought it nearly 2 decades ago, just shows you how bad it is. And by the way, Fewer home and office sales because of the homeless situation and because of the crime situation is causing San Francisco's real estate revenue to drop 64%. I mean, just a couple years ago, they were making like $500 million on these transactions. Now they make a little under $200 million, only $187 million bucks. It's absolutely terrible. You won't see this in other cities. Even New York City and Seattle are still experiencing some pretty crazy good real estate transactions. And look at this, San Francisco struggling downtown is hurting the tourism rebound, and no tourists want to go to San Francisco. If you ask a person why won't they go to San Francisco, they all say the same thing. There's a lot of homelessness and there's a lot of crime. And obviously San Francisco is just really reluctant to do anything to pretty much proceed and make the city better. They're just much more open to just letting people sleep on the streets. I think what San Francisco needs to do is to designate certain areas of the city for camps. In other places, you can't just have camps popping up. That way you can invite these businesses back, and then you could tax them and use the tax money to help them. I mean, that's what San Diego did, and it's working out perfectly fine for them, right? San Diego, they're doing a really good job. I gotta give them like a massive W. I mean, it's not perfect, but at least tourism is actually at an all-time high in San Diego. Real estate prices hasn't really dropped as much as San Francisco, and small mom and pop stores are willing to stay. So San Diego is actually doing a pretty good job. Here's the thing, I like San Francisco a lot. Now, I've been there before the pandemic. It really is a fantastic city and a fantastic location, great architecture, climate, and culture. But it's not a place I want to go right now because of this whole situation. I mean, when you have the federal building looking like this, all chained up, residents saying that it's very scary to leave like their apartment building. I mean, this is not a place where I want to be, right? I don't really want to be in working and living in a place that's not only one, super overpriced, but two, I can't even enjoy the city because of all the craziness. And look at this, like there's so much vacancy. San Francisco is even proposing a vacancy tax, which most landlords are not paying because it's absurd. You're literally paying vacancy tax because your store is empty. I mean, I'm sure people want to rent out these stores so landlords themselves can make money. It's not like they don't want to rent it out. Just there's no businesses that want to come in and rent it out. We're seeing record amounts of office closures. We're always seeing a multi-million-dollar building being foreclosed every single week. We got the biggest mall in San Francisco's downtown closing down. We got NEMA potentially foreclosing on a $400 million skyscraper. And it's just bad all around. Just nothing good is happening. We're seeing real estate properties going down. Construction is so bad. Let me tell you how bad the construction is. Just a couple years ago, they were making almost 2,000 condos and apartments a year. Now, this year, they've only made like 200-300 condos and apartments. That's how bad the San Francisco situation is. Many construction companies are leaving the city. Many of the biggest construction projects, like 2 luxury towers, have now been canceled. And that's how it is. It's super bad. Let's see what happens in San Francisco. I mean, this whole situation, the homeless encampments, I mean, I'm not crazy or anything. I just don't feel like there should be homeless encampments on the streets. It does affect businesses, and this is what happens in San Francisco. Just do what San Diego's doing. I mean, it's a win-win for both parties, honestly.